Honor to introduce to you who I consider to be the Rick Steves of metaphysics, Reverend Betty Jean Tatalajski from the Temple of Universality. This is a person who has a depth and an experience in the world of spirituality and metaphysics that I really haven't found the equal of. And I have run into a lot of people and done a lot of readings, and so here we are for another program, and here I couldn't be happier to be sitting here.
Well, it is lovely to be with our friends again, isn't it? And we are delighted to share with you our experiences of there is no death. You know, we have 10 tenets at the Temple of Universality, but this, I think, is the main one, because I've heard that the greatest fear that mankind has is the fear of death. And so we have the opportunity and the privilege of sharing and demonstrating that there is no death. Now, we certainly wouldn't want you just to sit out there and believe it, because on the other hand, you would disbelieve it. So we don't expect that at all, but we do offer you an opportunity, an invitation to come to the temple and see demonstrations of life eternal. It's, again, it's lovely to be here, and I would like to share with you some of the fun that we had this past month with our dear friend, Reverend Hoyt Robinette, who happens to be Reverend Robinette, and the greatest and sweetest man, who is the best spiritual phenomena medium in the country. So we're really pleased to have opportunity to have so many people come to the temple and experience for the first time the experience of talking directly with their loved ones in spirit. And beyond that, talking to those guides and teachers that have been around you since you were born. No one comes into life alone, although a lot of us think we have, you know. And, you know, when I think of people that were raised in orphanages, you know, many given up for adoption, and we feel like that they, you know, that there's a struggle there that perhaps a lot of us has not had. And so for these people to realize that they have chosen this experience, we all choose our parents and the way that we come into life, and to meet those on the other side and talk to them and know that they have been with them the whole time and that they did not come in alone. It's really a heartening thing, and it makes life so much easier. It also helps to discover that there are no victims, that we're all volunteers, and that we have chosen the place to be born, the parents, and a purpose, because we wouldn't be here without a purpose. Well, a lot of people think they've just skidded into life without a purpose, and we know that you could not get by the karmic board. The first thing they say is, why do you want to go back to earth, you know? We want to go back to raise our consciousness, to do a little better this time, and to serve humanity. So it was a wonderful time, wasn't it?
Well, you know, Betty, it's interesting that you should bring those two things up. For those who didn't get the opportunity to be at the temple in January for 3 weekends in a row on Sunday, Reverend Hoyt Robinette was there with us. He usually comes to Tucson twice a year. And it's because of Reverend Betty Tatalajski. She went back to Camp Chesterfield in Indiana, a spiritualist community where he was, and where like mediums were who would do what we call phenomena. Spirit card readings, all these trumpet readings, direct voice, things that seem impossible to the five senses, all right? And contained within the five senses, they are impossible. But the spiritualist point of view is, it not only is it possible, it's demonstrable. Well, she met Reverend Hoyt Robinette there, And because of that, since 1979, she would take groups of people from Tucson for 2 weeks.
My intervision classes.
It's amazing. Back to Camp Chesterfield, and they would see this kind of phenomena.
Yes.
And so what she did in 2005, she brought Hoyt Robinette here to Tucson.
Yes.
And what we saw last weekend was just astounding for those who are not used to it. You're an old hand at this. You've seen it and still can't get enough of it.
I love it more than anybody. I love my friends and meeting new ones in spirit all the time.
And what happens is that Reverend Robinette, when you walked into the temple, when people walked in, they were handed what we call a billet. And on this, they were asked to write the names of people who have passed in spirit.
Yes.
So you would write parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents,
or people,
or friends.
Or heroes of yours from 2,000 years ago.
Yes, you can
like
write
your master teacher.
Yes.
Yes.
Who you knew before I did.
Yes, I did.
All right. And so you write down the names of these people who are, quote, who are in spirit. Then everybody got to write down a question, their own question. Sometimes it had to do with people who have passed on. How were they?
Or 2 or 3 questions.
Or you know, am I gonna find love?
Yes.
Or what happened to the love?
Or my house going to be repossessed.
Right. Or what happened to the love I had last week?
Right.
You know, any question.
Going to be replaced?
It's going to be replaced.
I'm looking for my soulmate.
Exactly. Any question that you wanted. All right. And then you would sign your name at the bottom of the piece of paper. You would then fold it up and put it in this basket. All right. And so all these pieces of paper were collected together in a basket. Reverend Hoyt Robinette would stand up. He taped his eyes shut, put a blindfold over him, and then he starts feeling and putting these pieces of paper in order.
Yes.
And then he starts calling out names.
Right.
Now, there were around 200 people there, so not everybody got it read, but most people did. It was amazing. He stood up there for over an hour and started calling out names. Now,
he did it for 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Now, if you heard, for example, your dear uncle Frederick Schweitzenberger, all right,
died 50
years ago, and his name comes out, Fred Schweitzer, you go, yes, here. And then you knew that message was for you. And those people would come in, he would tell you which ones of your people were there, and he would answer your question and move on.
And many of them, now you have put a lot of names here, they'll call those names, and many that you didn't put on there
would come in.
Yes. Well, why didn't you call me?
Yes.
You know?
It's astounding because, and what people, I know my reaction to it the first time, which was in 2005, all right? And I had a private reading. And he's telling me these things, and I didn't know if they were true. Because how do you?
How do you know?
But you don't know if they're true. But they all came true.
Yes.
And so because of Reverend Betty Tatalajski, Tucson has a unique opportunity to see this phenomena, which shows you beyond a shadow of a doubt that those who have passed on have merely passed on. They haven't passed away.
No.
It's like they passed on off stage. They're there. And because of mediums who are that good, like Hoyt Robinette, they can talk to you.
And they're not all in the same place.
No.
Everything is frequency, different worlds.
Yes.
So we call them different worlds, different frequencies. Just like some people get 3 stations on their on their TV, and some get 200, you know. But it's all different frequencies.
Yes.
The law of attraction.
Yes.
And that's what people don't know is when you make transition into spirit, go through the veil, you're going to the same frequency that you have come from. So if you have come from being drunk last night,
that's right.
You know, chances are you're going to be with some drunk people when you go over there.
Some of the same people maybe were in the bar with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it has been a wonderful thing that we have. Now, I want to talk about that because this truth that there is no death and an experience that I had about that several years ago. One of my dear friends, a close colleague of mine that I mentioned on Fun Wednesday, had taken his children back to camp since they were very small.
You mean Camp Chesterfield?
In Camp Chesterfield.
Oh, they went?
Yes. Now, you know, he lived around the world.
Okay.
And was here working on the development of creating the temple, but his children lived in Illinois. But every year he would go drive back and pick up the children, take them to camp. They knew their teachers, guides, and
Wow.
every year from the time they were very little. So they were very, very comfortable, you know, and they would get instructions and love and so forth from their teachers and guides, but also apports, you know, the things that those stones and statues and different things that Spirit gives us through the trumpet. And I salute you for working with the trumpet. That's wonderful. So they would have boxes of little gifts and things that Spirit would give them. So every year we were there generally around the 4th of July. And Petra, his daughter, one summer, she had just graduated from high school, and she said, you know, Dad, you know, I've done this every summer, and, you know, I love it and so forth, and I want to go again, but I need to go back. My boyfriend, you know, has said, you do this every year, you never go to the ball game with me, you know, it means so much to me. Would you come take me home? And he says, yes, I will. So he's at camp.
Sure.
It's coming the 4th of July. He drives the children back to Illinois. It's not that far. And so anyway, we finish our week there, and on Saturday night, we have just come home the day before, and we get a call on Saturday night that there has been a horrific accident there, and Petra was involved in this accident. So they said there were 2 girls and her boyfriend. Okay, Paul is driving. Been an accident. 2 people were killed, and one was in the hospital. We didn't know which girl it was, if it was Petra or her best friend, okay? So they didn't know that for quite a while.
What happened to Paul, the driver?
Well, he made transition.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
They said 2 people made transition.
Okay.
He did,
okay.
and one of the women.
Okay.
And we didn't know.
Who? Okay.
We just happened to be, all of us who had gone, just happened to be together on Saturday night, just celebrating the week, okay? Yeah. And so we went in, certainly into prayers. We were not praying that it was, you know, her best friend, but we certainly were heartbroken along with Peter. And they hadn't told him yet. They did not know, because they were both 18-year-old girls. They both were beautiful women. Yeah. They just didn't know. So anyway, we find out later that Petra, his daughter, is fine, not a bruise, okay?
Okay.
Well, the next year, we go to camp, and Petra has... You know, she's fine. She's traumatized, but she's fine. And she goes to college, and she's depressed. You know.
Her boyfriend died,
Survivor
her friend
guilt.
Died,
Her best friend
died.
Her boyfriend.
Yeah.
But she also meets a young man there. His name is also Paul. And he is very depressed, so the law of attraction got them together. Yes, he's very depressed because he had somewhat quite a similar experience.
All right.
And he also was experienced survivor guilt, okay?
Yeah.
So in order, well, you are responsible to the degree of your awareness. Now, she knew on a real level that her boyfriend and her girlfriend did not die, but they're gone from her
life,
and she's depressed, and so she knows what he is going through. So she tells him there is no death. She is inadvertently healing herself by sharing the truth with him
that she experienced when she was growing up,
which she would prefer not to tell him, because she's still heartbroken
herself.
She's still kind of angry at God, you know, and feeling guilty, but she had to tell him because you are responsible, and she's put there with him. So he didn't really believe it, of course. I mean, my God, you know, you're not going to make me feel better here. You know, I know you're trying to make me feel better.
Yeah.
So the next summer, we go to camp, and she brings Paul from the college.
Okay.
And, you know, he's a nice guy just to even go through this. Of course, he doesn't believe a word of it.
Of course not.
And so we sit in a card circle like this one right here.
Okay, I'll show this.
You know.
This is a card, Explain, there it is, Betty.
And this is a card. One of the things that we did when Hoyt was here, spirit people come in and put their pictures on. This one happens to be Mamie Schultz Brown. Maybe Schultz. A very great phenomena medium a long time ago from Camp Chesterfield. The camp is 125 years old. And anyway, she came in and talked to me, put her card on here. Well, Paul, in spirit, came in, put his picture on Petra's card, signed his name along with the girlfriend and all of those teachers that she had been talking to all those years and her relatives. So here now she's got a picture of Paul. So then we have direct voice. We're speaking. The trumpet is going around the room, and it stops in front of her. Paul and her girlfriend come through and say, you know what they said? They said, Petra, we thought you died. They were talking about the accident, and they said, you know, we don't really remember the accident so much, but what we remember is that we were standing outside the car, and we looked in the car through the window, and there was only a big white light where you had been sitting. So we said to each other, oh my God, Petra has gotten killed.
And they thought they were alive, looking in the car. Wow.
That one curled my hair, okay?
Yeah.
Yes, we were so devastated because there you were we couldn't see you. You were surrounded by a light. Now what we found out was there was some kind of a bar in the inside the door. And it opened up and wrapped around her and held her in the seat. Okay. So the only thing, they had to take that bar out to get her out, but she wasn't touched. But we were so surprised later that we had made transition.
Not her.
Not she. Okay.
No, was was Paul, the second Paul. Was he in that? Did he?
He was in the.
Oh my God.
And of course, he's getting card from relatives over here too that he thought was dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
So then they go to another session, like with the silks.
Okay.
Now. This one is where you hold the cloth on your lap. Spirit comes in and put their pictures on your silk. And of course, I have, over the years, I have an album of them. But this is how they are. Generally, there's one large one in there, but and some others, you know. But sometimes it's just one big portrait of some loved one of yours. But anyway, Paul and Petra had their pictures on the silk. And so the young man had pictures of his relatives on his silk. So he was, you know, kind of thawing out a whole lot here. You know.
For a sophomore from college in the Midwest, all right, who's distraught because a loved one has passed away.
Absolutely.
And then you meet this girl who he obviously liked her enough to follow her to Camp Chesterfield.
And that law of attraction.
Yes, of course,
you know,
because she had suffered a similar event.
And she had to tell him.
Yeah, of course.
Because she knew it was true. But she didn't want it to be true because her heart was still frozen.
Yeah.
It was broken.
Yeah. And so she takes him there. He sits there, and she's been exposed to this ever since she was a little kid, which is amazing. Which is amazing. All right, and well, we all get it when we get it and how we get it.
Well, we are responsible to the degree of our awareness, and Peter had great integrity.
Yeah.
And he knew it was true, and spirits always said, you know, would talk about his children, how how fortunate they were, and how good father he was, and he was.
Yeah.
And so he was just honest with the kids, and they were exceptional kids. But, you know, when something devastating happens like that, you know, you just start, you know, inside you start screaming, this is not fair, you know. But the fact that this survivor guilt is very pervasive. It's very prominent in a person's life, you know, and you think, you know, why them and not me? But the part that really curled our hair was when they're standing outside the car and saying, oh my gosh, Petra has died. But they were so cheerful.
On the other side.
On the other side. You know.
That's right.
Yes. And they didn't say who had met them.
Yeah.
But of course, those teachers and guides and relatives, you know, that they had been talking to since they were small children, met them.
Yeah.
And they said, we're very, very happy here. We love our life here. We just were surprised, you know, and they, you know, tried to convince her that they were in a place that they chose and that it was so beautiful.
Well, you know, Betty, what we see at the temple, okay, and on those days when strangers to the phenomena show up and write down the names of like a husband or a wife or somebody close to them who's passed over, not expecting anything, but they're concerned about them, all right? Because for one thing, they don't even know if they're there, all right? But they say...
A lot of people think their people are in hell. Oh, that person was not nice, and you know, and they didn't believe in this, and they're probably in hell.
Yeah,
you know?
they were a Catholic instead of a Baptist, or a Baptist instead of a Catholic, you know? And so their questions very often are to those who have departed, are you all right?
Are you all right?
Are you all the concern of any human being for another person?
Right.
Are you all right? And those answers are always 100%. I am. The only thing is my love for you.
My love for
I'm
you.
here. You know, I'm totally all right. I want to assure you. You know, and in fact.
And if you get depressed, it hurts me.
See, Betty, this is the thing. Here it is. When the shoe is on the other foot, the truth of the matter is, I don't know very many people here that are really happy.
Right.
All right. I mean, it is tough.
That's tough.
It is tough for even the best, and even for the best, it can even be tougher.
Yes.
All right? Now, so what happens is, and that's true here, but when a person goes over, our fear is, oh, is it bad for you?
Right.
And the truth is, the answer is, they're doing much better than us here because they've been lifted out of the context of their problems.
And when we can celebrate them and celebrate their lives, regardless of how they lived them, and love them, it just brings them up.
It brings them up.
It brings them up into higher places.
Yes.
And the only time I've heard them cry is because of the people they've left who
behind.
Cry
for them. Yes.
And they said that breaks our heart, and we cannot go into the higher places because we cannot leave you because of your tears.
You're in such tears. People, because when people hear that separation, that loss from loved ones, okay, and it is so deep that very often those who have made transition are. They try and reach us. They try and do signs or something. But, you know, there is a veil here. Right. And we go through this and they can't do it. And so
they're trying to say, celebrate me.
Yeah, exactly. Don't feel...
Love me and let me go.
Let me go. Don't feel sad for me. Don't feel bad.
No.
In fact, their message to us is, listen, we're all right. We're concerned about you. All right?
You never died, and you won't
either. But they know that now, and until you make that transition yourself, unless you come to the temple or unless you're lucky in some way to know that, hey, you don't know it. So, 11 o'clock, the corner of Prince and Country Club, Temple of Universality. Here she is, folks.